Okay, looks like we're already off to a slow start here. Welcome back, everyone. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos. And today I want to talk to you guys about the Logos in the Greek tradition, from Pythagoras to the Stoics. So today we're going to be reading out of this very important book, From Logos to Trinity. I've talked about this book before by Marian Hillar and really have enjoyed it myself. It's been a great... So as an Orthodox, there may be some theology here that you guys would not agree with, but in regards just a scholastic text to talk about the idea of logos and then the development of the Trinity in Christianity, this is a really good book. It's not the cheapest book in the world, but I do recommend it. And so this is what we're going to be getting into today. Can everybody smash that like? If you could. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Not sure what's going on. Sorry about that if you guys are getting a slow stream. Seems like we were having some technical difficulties at first, but at least we are good and running now. So, before we get into anything, I think a necessary item that needs to be addressed is the new icon corner. Guys, check this out. So we finally got all the icons that come in from Uncut Mountain Supply. So all these we got reference to Psalm 103 here. This is the Psalm 103 icon of O Lord, how manifold are thy works, in wisdom hast thou made them all. The earth is filled with thy creation. Here is Christ creating the stars. When the stars were made, all my angels praised me with a loud voice. Here is the nativity. Here is the resurrection. And then here is the priest of priests, the priest of creation. And so here it's kind of, yeah, I think the only thing I kind of need, again, these are bigger, more expensive. I'm balling on a budget here, guys, so throw in a super chat if you could. But that's really about all I could afford were these 4 plus right here. Guardian Angel icon. So we got the Guardian Angel, we got St. John the Theologian, we got St. Patrick, my patron saint, and then we got the Theology of the Logos. Again, the only thing I think I'm missing for the full Theology of the Logos is the crucifixion, right? I don't have the crucifixion. I got the nativity. I got life being born. I got death or defeating death with life. So these I felt like went together. But I need to get probably the crucifixion, and then I feel like basically I have all the ones that I want. I do want a St. George icon slaying the dragon. I do know I want that. Maybe over here with the non-logos icons. Logos over here, non-logos over here. So anyways, hope you guys enjoy that. I know I do. Really excited to have all those in. I've been waiting for them. So shout out to Uncut Mountain Supply. All the icons were beautiful and of great quality. They've all been blessed by my priest, so I'm ready to rock and roll. I got the logos looking over my shoulder, so I think I'm in good company over here now. But wanted to highlight that. And also, guys, today's stream is half. So what we're going to be doing moving into the future is these large streams like today. Half of it's actually going to be over at the website, in which it's already up. So as soon as this stream is over, you can go straight over to the website, davidpatrickharry.com/register, and watch the rest of this stream. The part of the stream that is over at the website is going to be my favorite section, and that is on the Stoics. So the Stoics section, we will get through Pythagoras, various of the pre-Socratics. We'll get into Plato and the various people. But if you want to learn more about the Stoics, you're gonna have to go over to the website. So please, guys, support me. I'm I'm trying here. You see me hustling. I'm always coming up with videos, always streaming. I put a lot of effort into the quality of my stream. So if you enjoy it, if you're in a position in which you could, guys, go over to the website, become a website member, watch the second half of this stream. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Also, want to highlight that if you guys are going to Super Chat, please use the Streamlabs link. Here, I will grab that real quick. Jimmy or any of the moderators, if you guys could keep posting the Streamlabs link here, I'll put it here in the live chat to begin with. If you guys prefer to use YouTube to Super Chat, that is fine. They take 30% of whatever you donate, just FYI, whereas if you use the Streamlabs link, the majority of what you donate will actually come to me. So I would greatly, greatly appreciate that if you guys could. So Super Chat using the Streamlabs link. And there it is right there. And then I'm going to pin that comment up to the top. So again, just use, if you guys want to contribute, you want to say something, feel free to use that link right there. Also, I wanted to mention, guys, one-on-one sessions. Been going great. We've had 2 new signups in the last week. Shout out to George. George, we got another one lined up. So just want to say, if you guys are interested regarding any topic, if you want to get into Logos theology, you want to get into philosophy, you want to get into New Age psychedelic stuff, you want to get into fitness, lifestyle, you want maybe a third perspective on goals that you're setting and how you're going about attaining those, well, guys, feel free to go to the website and sign up for a one-on-one session. And we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. You'll sign up, you'll purchase, I'll email you, I'll ask you what topics you want to talk about, what days are your best available, what time we both work out, then we'll set it, and then we'll meet in a Zoom chat, and whatever it is that you want to talk about, I'll prepare for it. Or if you just want to ask me questions, we can do that. Whatever you guys want, that is an option. So please feel free to do that. We've been having great sessions recently, so shout out to that. And if anybody's done one-on-one sessions, feel free to give a review here in the live chat, I'm sure, or leave a comment if you're watching this post the live stream. It would be beneficial for others maybe on the fence or thinking about it. So anyways, thank you all for that. That basically takes care of all the announcements. Now, what are we going to be getting into today? Today, we are going to get into this book. As I said, we are going to start with Pythagoras. And so we're going to be looking at Pythagoras. He has this great section, and that's what we're going to be covering, is Logos and Greek culture. And so we're going to be starting with Pythagoras. Then we're going to move through to Heraclitus, of which I'm sure many of you guys are familiar. This is basically a summation of, some of you guys may have seen my video playlist on the development of Logos, and it talks about Plato, and it talks about Heraclitus and the Stoics and all this different stuff. That was also when I was getting much into this stuff, so I wasn't as educated as I am now in regards to just how much more I've read. But this is basically trying to encapsulate a lot of that stuff quickly for people. So it's going to be dense. So put on your thinking caps today. We're going to be using a lot of philosophical jargon. It's going to be sort of a heady stream. I already see we don't have as many people, which is tends to be the case with the headier stream. So we're going to be getting into Heraclitus, then Empedocles, Parmenides. Then we'll be getting into Diogenes of Apollonia and Anaximenes. We'll be getting into Plato and his dualism, and that will take us up to Xenocrates and then the Stoics. Again, we're not going to be covering the Stoics live. That video has already been filmed, it's already been edited, and it's already been posted at the website. So go to davidpatrickcarey.com/register, and you guys can become website members. So let me just pull that up for you and grab that link for you guys real quick. So again, that is /register davidpatrickharry.com if you want to watch the second half of the stream. This is going to be sort of the MO moving forward. Is I'm going to create these very in-depth streams and lectures, and half of them are going to be over at the website. So you can thank Made by Jim Bob and Jay Dyer for giving me this great suggestion that this is basically what I'm going to start doing. So please go over to the website, posted the link just now in the live chat, and become a member so you guys can check the second half of this stream. So we're going to get into a lot of reading, a lot of commentary, so we might as well just dive into it. The opening paragraph is going to kind of frame what it is we're going to be talking about today. And that is, the term logos was widely used in the Greco-Roman culture and in Judaism. Among its many meanings are word, speech, statement, discourse, refutation, ratio, proportion, account, explanation, reason, and thought. This term, however, is not used for a, quote, word as used in grammar. Instead, lexis is used. Both terms derive from the Greek word lego, meaning to tell, to say, to speak, or to count. But the meanings for logos that have philosophical and religious implications are basically two: as an inward thought or reason, an intuitive conception, and as an outward expression of thought in speech. In any theistic system, it could therefore easily be used to account for a revelation, or could be personified to designate a separate being. Throughout most schools of Greek philosophy, this term was used to designate a rational, intelligent, and thus vivifying principle of the universe. Okay, so rational, intelligent, and vivifying, life-giving principle of the universe. This principle was deduced from an analogy to the living creature. As an analogy to a living creature, of course, we believe it is living. He actually became man. And because the ancient Greeks understood the universe as a living reality in accordance with their belief, it had to be vivified by some principle, namely the universal logos. And so now we're going to be getting into how the Greek mind understood the concept of logos, beginning with Pythagoras. So a few things I want to say about Pythagoras, is that obviously he has many ideas that are, and we're going to see many ideas throughout this that are non-Christian, right? These are pagan Greek ideas. He believed in the transmigration of souls, basically a form of reincarnation. But as we move through today's text, keep in mind the progression. It is so providential how, let me thank you, Andrew Pro, for the donation. Let me move that out of the way. That was right over my head. Pythagoras is going to have many ideas that we would consider pagan, heretical, non-Christian. Fine. We're going to find that with many of these authors. But again, from the framework of Logos Spermaticos, from the framework of St. Justin Martyr, and looking for seeds of truth, seeds of our own theology, seeds of revelation in unrevealed ideologies like Greek philosophy, I think is very, very interesting. And this is what I was even trying to highlight at the very opening of the members only video on the Stoics, is what is remarkable, and especially in the Stoicism section, is how many of these ideas are almost prefigurings of Orthodox theology, of Christian revelation. Again, Christianity adopts some of these ideas, but you'll notice today that it's so interesting how, again, 500 years before Christ, they're putting these ideas of the Logos, even as, one of the things with the Stoics is that they believed things had to have a body to move. And so it was very interesting that they saw the body of the Logos as the universe. But again, the Logos actually took a human body as well. Yes, And also our logos is separate from creation, right? So we would never say the body of the universe is the body of the logos, right? Again, that's Platonic stuff. That's much more a veneration of nature, which the Stoics were into. But there's so many ideas that we're going to see prefigurings of. For example, within the Stoics, they talked about how Pneuma, spirit, was it's what brings the logos to people. And you hear that, the Stoics talking about that. And again, depending on who you talk to, because Chrysippus had a different understanding than Zeno in regards to Pneuma and stuff like that. So later in the schools of Stoicism, but very interesting, right? What happens at Pentecost is that, again, the Holy Spirit, the real Pneuma, does just that, right? It's the paraclete. It's the bringer of truth. It's the spirit of life itself. So that's what I want you guys to keep in mind as we move through today, is look for precursors, prefigurings of our own theology. It's very, very interesting stuff. So the first one. So now let's get started. Pythagoras is who we're going to begin with. So Pythagoras is a 570 BC, before Christ. Now remember, Heraclitus, as we'll see, he's around 500 BC into the late 400s. Pythagoras is before him. And Pythagoras was, just to highlight some of the ideas he's noted for before we get into the more nitty-gritty of his worldview. He was a vegetarian. He's known for that. The school, the Pythagoreanism, right? This was a whole ideology. It was a worldview. It was a school. It was people. And then there's so much legend and mystique around Pythagoras, who he was, what did he do? Did he have friends? Where did he die? A lot of people don't know the details about Pythagoras. He's sort of a mythic legend, though we know he was historical. The transmigration of souls. His Pythagorean school was into vegetarianism. It believed in the immortality of the soul, which is a very interesting idea. Important in the development of religious thought. So he believed in the immortality of the soul. However, the soul, again, needing a body to move, is reincarnated. It transmigrates into its next body after death. The soul can't be destroyed. It's immortal, but you may come back as a beaver, so watch yourself. Pythagoras also believed, he had this idea of musica universalis, and that the universal music, the universal harmony of the universe. Again, this idea is much, again, things that we don't even think about, is rooted in a concept of logos. Pythagoras was the first person to call himself a lover of wisdom, a philosopher, philosophia, love, sophia, wisdom, right? So Pythagoras saw, for example, they claimed that the planets moved according to mathematical equations to correct proportions. And because of this, that it created an audible symphony, a symphony of the spheres, a symphony of the universe. Again, true harmony. So we can see ideas of logos theology, the one that unites all, the creator of the universe, the thing that collapses the dualities of creation. It's already present in Pythagoras, in things like the Pythagorean theorem, that there's an objective reality, that through the laws of logic and reason, using numbers, we can learn more about creation, right? So again, Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Know your hypotenuse, guys. You guys probably haven't heard the Pythagorean theorem in a while, but also Pythagorean tuning, right? His whole concept of music and mathematics and geometry, how that all aligns, again, is rooted within a presupposition of logos itself. Now, it's very abstract. So as we talk about logos, it's so abstract in the Greek context. And this is where Christianity is so beautiful, because it brings the personalization of Yahweh, the personal relationship of me as man with God, to the abstractness of the philosophical Greek tradition, right? That the Greeks developed these concepts. The Greeks gave us the language. They gave us the tools to describe who incarnated as Jesus Christ. But they didn't have any of the personal dimension. They didn't have much of the specifics. They had this big abstract concept. And the Stoics clearly got the closest to it. But they still had a vast misunderstanding, because how could you if you don't have revelation? If you don't have the other part of the story. And so it's like the Jews couldn't understand who the Messiah was. The Greeks couldn't understand how the Logos was a person. And again, Christ breaking down the distinction between Jew and Gentile. He is just that. He is the Greek Logos in a Jewish body, in a Jewish man's body, right? It's really interesting, really fascinating once you start to think of it from that perspective. Sorry, I dropped my pen. And so the theory of proportions was a big one for Pythagoras. Again, proportions. We've talked about fractal mathematics, sacred geometry, aesthetics themselves, beauty. Beauty. A man or a woman's beauty is based on their proportions. If you have an disproportionate face, or unproportionate face, say your nose is long or your eyes are crooked, you're not going to be considered beautiful. Because deep down inside of us, we are looking for that harmony. Again, that harmony is a presence of God, the good, the true, and the beautiful. And so being beautiful, again, your proportions is where we see beauty. Again, that's why fractal mathematics, sacred geometry, art, sacred space, right? If you go into a place of worship, that's called sacred space. Why is it called sacred space? Because that space is built upon sacred geometric ratios. Pi, phi, Fibonacci, all that golden ratio, you get it. So proportion is somehow tied to divinity. This is what they tied that to, the Logos. Again, we do the same thing. It's Jesus Christ. So Pythagorean theorem, Pythagorean tuning, the theory of proportions. Now, some of you, this might be controversial for you guys, but the sphere, or the sphericity of the earth. So Pythagoras was also one of the early proponents of a round earth theory. Now, I know some of you, I'm sure we got people listening that are going to be flat earth proponents, so take that how you will. Maybe you put that in the same bin as his vegetarian. I don't know. But it's still very interesting. And, you know, Pythagoras was also the one who identified the morning star, Lucifer, Lucius, the light bringer, right? The morning and evening star as actually the planet Venus. So that was a big deal in people's worldview, their conception. So anyways, that's enough of me ranting about Pythagoras and who he is. Let's just start reading the book and start getting into this stuff. So here we go. We are now diving into the pre-Socratic philosophers, beginning with Pythagoras. Beginning with the father of Greek philosophy, Pythagoras of Samos, we find already in place all the elements of future Greek schools of the Platonic synthesis of Hellenic philosophy with Hebrew myth and of the so-called Christian philosophy. About 540 BC, Pythagoras settled in Croton in southern Italy, where he founded a religious sect with a strict, austere moral code. The members of his school were taught to devote themselves to the cultivation of philosophy, mathematics, arithmetic, and geometry, music, astronomy, and gymnastics. Their study was centered on the Muses, who were the goddesses of harmony and culture, and their guide was Apollo, whose name was interpreted by the later Pythagoreans, such as Plutarch, as equal to the One. For Plutarch, who was himself a priest of Apollo in the Temple of Delphi, Apollo was a representation of the cosmic principle of harmonic order, or logos, and the dialectics. So that's a big one, right? So for Plutarch, who was himself a priest of Apollo, so what do we see with Apollo? We see the sun god, right? Well, this is another thing that I get irritated with is like the people, and I'm going to do a whole stream. I've decided I'm going to do a whole stream on astrotheology. The Jordan Maxwells of the world, the whole astrotheology, right, is that all religion is really just astrological mythologizing, right? So we mythologize the stars and the zodiacs, and this is really the origin of everything. And don't you know that Christianity is a solar religion? They worship the sun, and they worship on Sun's Day, and look at Christmas, and look at Easter, and look at all the symbols of Christ, and he always has a halo, and the sun's behind him. Sure. That doesn't disprove Christianity at all. Again, as an Orthodox, whenever you encounter somebody who starts putting out these ideas, just smile, nod reassuringly, and then let them know that yes, the sun again is a perfect symbol, an analogy of who Jesus Christ is, given that it's the light of the world, that it is necessary for life itself. The sun sustains existence. The sun's what brings us out of the dark, right? So we wouldn't eat without the sun. It's not that we worship the sun. It's that solar symbolism and all the solar traditions that pre-existed Christianity or even post-Christianity with this sort of neo-paganism going on, is that all they're doing is worshiping a lower resonance of Christ himself, of the full revelation of who the Logos actually is. So if you're dealing with people talking about astrotheology, don't get so caught up with it, depending on where you're at in your journey. It doesn't disprove anything. We can agree of the solar symbolism related to Christ. We can agree about the solar significance of December 25th. But that doesn't disprove the myth. It doesn't disprove the theology. And so don't let people kind of trick you into pointing out, oh, this, that's, that, and then somehow you feel less reassured. Yeah, we all know about astrotheology. We're very familiar with it. So, anyways, moving on. Sorry about that little rant. Though many before Pythagoras called themselves sages or sophi, Pythagoras was the first to call himself a philosophos, a lover of wisdom. For him, philosophy was not an intellectual endeavor, but also a way of life whose aim was to reach assimilation to divinity, understood as a governing or originating cosmic principle. So again, we can see a theosis yearning within Pythagoras, right? What is he? He wishes to be assimilated to divinity. Again, I think this is true with all these Illuministic frameworks, of which the Pythagoras and the Pythagorean school would take on an Illuministic framework, right? It's about gnosis, about self-knowledge, secret knowledge, all this different stuff. Or for him, even exoteric knowledge, the mathematics, the ratios, the proportions, the cosmic harmony. This was knowledge that brought him closer to God. For Pythagoras, liberation of the soul is achieved by contemplation of the first principles. Thus, philosophy is a form of purification, a way to immortality. For the accepted, the Orphic belief in transmigration. Again, it's the way of immortality. That's what we're doing over here in Christianity. So, by contemplation, he becomes aware of the divine. That is, of the universal principles that constitute the cosmos. We find in the Pythagorean philosophy the trinity of the cosmological principles, the monad, the dyad, and harmony, which correspond on the moral and intellectual level to the trinity of truth, goodness, and beauty. That is reference again to Plato there. The principle of harmony immanent in the universe was responsible for the proportional relation of one thing to the other. In Pythagoras' understanding of reality, the cosmic intelligible principle from which everything evolved by emanation was the monad, represented by the number one. Number one was seen as a principle underlying number. Thus, numbers in general were seen as manifestations of the diversity in unity. That is, I loved that. I hadn't thought about that. Again, they saw numbers as the diversity of unity, that it all goes back to the number one, because without the number one, there are no numbers. Obviously, that's
You don't have to be Einstein. Well, I take away, I'm not going to use the Einstein. You don't have to be a Tesla to understand that, or Pythagoras, but it's still really interesting. I love that. I hadn't heard it sort of worded that way before. So the monad was undifferentiated principle of unity of the whole of reality and the source of the world as an ordered universe. It was the principle of all things, and as the most dominant of all that is, all things emanated from it, and it emanated from nothing. The Logos emanated from nothing. It was indivisible and immutable. Everything that exists, and even that which is created, yet exists in it. It is the nature of ideas, God himself, the soul, the beautiful, and the good. The next principle was the dyad, which represented diversity in the universe. The opposing powers, the duality of subject and object, and the beginning of the third principle, harmony. This third principle was the relation, the ratio, the logos, in proportion, the analogia of one thing to another. And it was particularly represented by the proportion between numbers, geometrical figures, or tones in the musical scale. This triad was immanent in nature and represented the dynamic process of cosmogony. The one was the unification of the whole reality. The two represented diversification and differentiation of the one in the process of forming the world forming the world order or ordered world. And harmony, or logos, by extension, was the bond uniting these two extremes. For Pythagoras, the intelligible number is the principle of order in the cosmos and life, and is immanent. Thus, his philosophy is a metaphysics of immanent order in contrast to Plato's metaphysics of the transcendent. In the cosmology of the phenomenal material world, Aristotle preserved in his metaphysics the Pythagorean idea of order connected with limit, form, or a definite boundary represented by the monad, and the idea of diversity or multiplicity linked with the unlimited and indefinite matter represented by the dyad. Moreover, the Pythagoreans differentiated 10 principles of contrarieties in the world. The cosmic numerical Pythagorean principles were represented by geometrical figures and were the powers that ordered the world. And so what they're referring to too is this right here. You see this diagram right here? This is important. So this little thing basically can provide you the whole of the Pythagorean worldview. And so let's get into it. So that pattern that I just showed you, this pattern represented numbers in a geometrical fashion. For example, 1 was represented by a point, 2 by a line. So again, you can imagine point, and then you connect those, you'd get a line. 3 by a triangle, and 4 by a tetrahedron. So again, to represent 3, you then draw the triangle. So this whole thing, it's actually much deeper. It's pretty interesting how the Pythagoreans use this. Okay, so the whole pattern represented differentiated unity returning back to unity, the number 10, and was projected on the cosmic reality described previously in terms of the metaphysical principles of the limited and the unlimited. Following the Pythagoras example, one of his disciples, and I'm going to butcher this name, Alcmaeon of Croton, applied this worldview to the study of medicine. That is, the phenomena underlying the condition of health and disease, and developed a concept that health is, quote, the harmonious mixture of qualities, unquote, which became for centuries until modern times the foundation of the Hippocratic school of medicine. Why we find in these Pythagorean concepts also the first representation of a metaphysical trinity as the cosmic unity in the whole reality of the three principles, the monad, the dyad, and harmony. This cosmic metaphysical trinity corresponds on the moral and intellectual level to the trinity of truth, grasped through the intellect and also through the senses. Goodness, moral principle achieved by harmony between the psychic and the somatic faculties, and beauty, art, and order at the psychological and social level. So that concludes the section on Pythagoras. We can see then he was very much interested in this unifying concept, this unifying order that again was tied to the word logos. Now for Pythagoras, he never really capitalized logos per se. As we move forward here, we're going to see, again with Heraclitus, we're going to see logos being brought with a capital L. Again, not in the reference to divinity like you'd see in a Christian context, but how for them it was the ultimate knowability of the transcendent realm, right? How they describe God, what God is, it can get tricky at times. But logos was, the Greek philosophical tradition was much more confident to talk about logos than like a monotheistic God, right? They were very comfortable talking about the polytheistic, the lower gods, right? The sort of immortal gods that are just like men and women, but they live forever. For our mind, they weren't really gods. But anyways, I digress. Moving on, let's get into Heraclitus now. We're getting into Heraclitus of Ephesus and Anaxagoras. So you may have heard me again. I talked a little bit. I did a stream on the pre-Socratic philosophy on the one and the many. You may have checked that out. The one and the many is really the main problem much of the pre-Socratics were trying to address. Even true with Heraclitus. Heraclitus talked about the sort of underlying principle of all reality. The fundamental principle was fire itself. And that's going to be interesting. Again, as we move through today's stream, keep in mind the use and the analogy and the symbolism of fire, right? Because in an Orthodox context, we talk about the river of fire. God's love is fire. If you are moving towards God, that purifying fire cleanses you. It brings you closer to Him. If you are running away from God, that fire is to burn away the dross, take away your sins, right? That's what His love does. But if you're trying to attach yourself to, defend yourself with your sins, with your degenerate behavior, that fire, that love of God is actually going to burn. That is what hellfire is in the Orthodox context. It is hellfire. The eternal burning is somebody who is eternally, because now they're dead, they're outside time, they can't repent, they have rejected God. And by rejecting God's love, which is an eternal fire, it now burns you. Whereas if you are consumed by it and want to be purified by God to be like God, well, then you welcome that fire. So as we move through, keep in mind the way they talk about fire related to the logos, and it's very, very interesting. Guys, smash that like if you have not. If you guys just joined, please smash that like. And thank you, Jimmy, for sharing the Streamlabs link. Guys, if you'd like to super chat, feel free to super chat using YouTube if you prefer, or more preferably, use the Streamlabs link. They don't take 30% out like YouTube does. So now let's get into Heraclitus. Next, the term logos seems to be employed in its special philosophical metaphysical meaning by Heraclitus of Ephesus from 540 to 480 BC, who claimed that all things in the world happen according to the logos. Oh, wow. Now we're getting rhetoric that we can definitely jump on as Orthodox Christians, right? He meant by this statement that the world and phenomena are a collection of unified things that in orderly structure, a cosmos, regulated and arranged by the logos. So the logos organizes the cosmos. This is Heraclitus now. Again, you can see him developing on ideas that Pythagoras has already put forth in many of his theorems and his ideas of harmony, cosmic harmony, music, mathematics, geometry. But the whole concept of reason in natural phenomenon can be found in most pre-Socratic philosophers, with the exception of the atomists, who claim that all phenomena that occur in nature are a result of inherent properties and interactions between the structures constituting nature. Anaxagoras is considered to be the first philosopher who assumed mind, nous, to be another term closely related to the logos, thus a rational principle as the first cause of all things. He believed that every substance or stuff was eternal and non-particulate. Again, so this is a big idea. Of course, we do not believe in the Greek nous. That is totally just a rational concept related to sort of your cognitive faculties, right? Your nous is your mental, is your mind. It's your mind, right? Where is your mind? Can you touch your mind? Is your mind the same thing as your brain? Well, if you're a materialist, you'd say yes. I think the majority of people say no. So what exactly is that mind? For the Greeks, they'd call that the nous. It's just a rational, it's the mental faculty. Now, in Orthodoxy, we use the nous, but that's not what we mean. We mean the eye of the soul. We mean the eye of the heart. And again, interestingly, if you guys go over to the website and become website members to watch the second half of this stream on the Stoics, you'll see that the Stoics begin to redefine nous, even related to the rational principle. It's very mind-oriented, and it's not orthodox, but they start to talk about the heart a little bit. It's very, very interesting. So Anaxagoras is now talking about the nous and it being related to the logos. So for Anaxagoras, again, kind of detached from we would call Hebraic or Christian morality or anything like that. The nous, this mental mind, this rational principle, allows us to witness the logos, right? So there's something going on between this cosmic mind, the logos, and our own little localized mind, the nous, in the Greek context, right? Not in Orthodoxy, because in Orthodoxy, again, we can see more of the logos through our nous, but it's going to become tied to our moral and our spiritual life, and how we live in the world is actually going to dictate how tainted or darkened our nous is, which then how much of the logos, Jesus Christ, we can actually see in the world. So it's not that we're that far off of the concept, but we have redefined it in a way that is not going to be the same as Anaxagoras or Heraclitus. In the beginning, everything was a gaseous chaos, and the cosmos originated through the separation produced by the cosmic force, mind. When mind began to move, all things were separating off from everything and disassociated. They were still further separated by the revolution. This force was different from the rest of things and did not mix with them, for mind is something infinite and self-controlling, and it is alone itself by itself. But we do not know how Anaxagoras interpreted this mind, whether it was a personal rational agent comparable to the later post-Nicene Christian concept of God, or an impersonal natural force. It seems probable that Anaxagoras meant an impersonal force comparable to the natural forces of love and strife, postulated by Empedocles. The task of human wisdom, according to Heraclitus, consists in grasping this rational principle. Whatever we do or think depends on our participation in the divine logos. Right? This is Heraclitus, guys. Whatever we do or think depends on our participation in the divine logos. Now you can see he's talking about our minds, our nous being a lower resonance of the cosmic divine universal mind, the logos. But again, that we can see the schematics moving into something that we would be very familiar with. This is a quote. So the logos has to be thought of as a principle with God, as it was reported about Heraclitus' thought that, quote, this is Heraclitus, fire, by the logos and God which arrange all things, is turned by way of air into moisture, the moisture which acts as seed of the world-forming process, and which he calls sea. Then out of this, earth comes into being, and heaven and everything enclosed by it. The world the world order is just a modification of the eternal world and, in Heraclitus' view, undergoes a cyclic process of creation, transformation, and back into cosmic fire. Now, I'm going to skip for a second, but this was something that came up over and over, even in some of the later traditions, and we may read that here, is the returning, again, because the Greek mind is very cyclical in their understanding. You can see the transmigration of souls, the universe not having an origination point, right? It's just eternally cyclical. That the cosmic fire, the world ends in its sort of re-embracing of the cosmic fire. Well, what is the second coming of Christ? I'm not talking about the fire per se, but for them, the fire is synonymous with the logos because it's the primordial Ursprung. It is the primordial matter of the universe is fire. And so then what for them, their cyclical worldview is that we go through cycles and it ends in the cosmic fire. Well, couldn't we just Christianize that or re-understand that in an Orthodox context as the second coming of the Logos himself? That history ends in the second coming. Now, we don't have a cyclical world where we just keep, Christ just keeps coming and then we keep falling and then he incarnates and then he comes. We don't have that, right? This is a beginning, a middle, and an end indefinitely. But I just love, again, I'm just trying to highlight the precursors of things. This is intellectual history for Christians. That's what I'm doing. This is intellectual history. Most people aren't familiar. I love intellectual history. This is one of my passions in the academy. That's why I like philosophy and theology. I want to know where ideas come from. I want to know where general frameworks, concepts, where do they begin and how do they inform history? Well, that's what we're doing here with the Logos. We're looking at intellectual history. We're looking at these Greek concepts, and we can see then how Orthodox theology re-sanctifies it, cleanses it, and and takes out the dialectics, takes out the internal contradictions, brings it in fulfillment with Hebrew Old Testament revelation, with Greek philosophical concepts, and then the truth of the New Testament. You wrap all those three things together. That is Orthodox theology. That is what we're getting at, right? Is that of the prophetic tradition, the incarnation of God, and then many of the Greek philosophical concepts and language we have to sanctify to articulate ourselves to the world. So, just want to throw that out there. Guys, also, please smash that like if you can. All right. So, continuing on here. The visible gods, the highest class of divine beings, have bodies of fire. It is also the substance of demons. In earlier writings, ether was identical with air and with fire, as, for example, by Anaxagoras. Thus, this cosmic fire is the, quote, first principle or constituent of all things in arche. So again, this can get a little tricky because we refer to the sole arche of the Trinity in regard to the Father, but I think in a way we could refer to the arche of creation or the cosmos of the universe regarding back to the Logos, right? Because it's the will of the Father that creates through the Logos, so it's not, again, we can see disparate similarities here. At the same time, this fire, as the most non-corporeal of all the elements, at some point is identified by Heraclitus and others with the intelligent and creative agent, the cause of managing and organizing the universe, and thus with God himself. That is Zeus for them. So Zeus. Okay, we skip that. We don't need to read that part. Okay, here's another part in regards to, I'll go ahead and read it. And as such, it itself remains stable and unchanged. The power of Zeus, God, the bright ether, would emanate violently from it as a thunderbolt and lightning flash. God, as we have seen, is also wisdom. The divine principle alternatively creates the world from itself and again itself from the world. Thus, quote, all things are in exchange for fire and fire for all things, unquote. Heraclitus also believed in the resurrection of the visible flesh in which we are born, aware that God is the cause of this resurrection and that the judgment of the world and all who are in it will come through the eternal fire. So let me read that again, guys. This is very interesting. This is the last sentence on our section on Heraclitus, but think about how similar this is again to Christian theology. Just, think of it in an Orthodox context. Heraclitus also believed in the resurrection. This is 540 BC to 480 BC before Christ. He believed in the resurrection of the visible flesh in which we are born, aware that God is the cause of this resurrection and that the judgment of the world, all who are in it, will come through the eternal fire. The eternal fire is the Logos. That's just another way that Heraclitus would say it. So what is he saying? He believed in a resurrection of our bodies, and that whatever we did here on earth will be judged by the Logos. I mean, that's our own theology, guys. So amazing stuff, right? Now we've gone through Pythagoras, we've looked at Heraclitus, we've looked at a few ideas from Anaxagoras. Now we're going to be jumping into Empedocles, Xenophanes, and Parmenides, okay? So the most interesting cosmological synthesis among the pre-Socratic philosophers was undoubtedly that created by Empedocles in a town in Sicily, later named by the Romans as Agrimentum. A prominent physician, politician, and poet, he was widely known and recognized, and even a statue was erected to him to honor him in his native city, which was reportedly transferred later to Rome and placed before the Senate building. This cosmic model represents the world at a constant evolutionary and cyclic process, not unlike the modern cosmological theory of the Big Bang and the Big Crunch. I just wanted to include that because these ideas, the materialism, the atomism, the quantum physics, the Big Bang, this stuff isn't new, guys. That's why getting into intellectual history is so insightful. It's insightful. That's what Jay is doing most of the time when he's trying to talk to you guys or the streams or myself or you sort of have amnesia. As you learn more about history, the more you remember the world, right? Not that you and I were there. I'm not arguing for reincarnation, but just as to perceive the happenings in reality, I don't think you can put patterns together unless you know history. So it provides a backdrop, it provides a foundation, it provides reference points to look at the world. The same thing is true for intellectual history. And I think it just gets a short shaft. Most people I know are not interested in intellectual history. But I'm telling you, for me, it's one of the most insightful things. I feel like that's what allows me to do this YouTube channel. I'm not special. I read, I'm disciplined, and I work hard. That would be the only things I say about myself. But really, it's because of looking into intellectual history, then I can connect dots, and that's what then I try to do on my streams, whether I'm talking about sociology or theology or philosophy or New Age, whatever it is. I mean, that's essentially what I'm trying to do. So I recommend anybody listening, look into intellectual history. I'm telling you, it only strengthens your ability to recognize ideas, patterns, concepts, know where they come from when you engage people who are pagan or whatever worldview, just like the Big Bang. Well, you're an atomist. Yeah. I know a lot about that all the way back to the Greeks. It just gives you such a better frame of reference. But anyways, again, I digress. Moving on. We're talking about Empedocles, Xenophanes, and Parmenides. At the time of Empedocles, there were two current concepts of the universe. One doctrine propounded by Parmenides and his school represented a strict philosophical monism and claimed that the universe was one, indivisible, eternal, immutable, and static. Right? So you can already tell, well, that's going to be the opposite of Heraclitus, who believed, again, panthe re, all flows, can't step into the same river twice. It denied the existence of void and time. For them, reality, the one, or being, was an ever-existing presence. Any change or movement was only a deception of the senses. The other idea was developed by Heraclitus, of a universe undergoing continuous metamorphosis from a cosmic fire back to that cosmic fire, which was at the same time the stuff of the universe from which everything emanated. This was the opposite of the Parmenides' immutability, and in the Heraclitus universe there was no real identity of things. Heraclitus is reported to have said, quote, "You cannot bathe twice in the same river. Both it and yourself will be different on the two occasions," unquote. Moreover, all becoming or generation was a result of a clash between opposites. Quote, "War is the father of all things," unquote. Above all these opposites, however, presides the Logos, the universal reason, introducing harmony and unity among the opposites. Empedocles first combined these two cosmological concepts in his work on nature. Later, at an advanced age, Empedocles joined the Pythagorean mystical religious sect, probably under the influence of Pythagoras' son, and he modified his views in his work entitled Purifications by adopting the ideas of immortality of the individual soul, of sin, and the transmigration of the soul as the way to expiate sins. His admiration for Pythagoras was absolute. So again, here I think this is another addition that I think is worthy of interest. So we have Heraclitus talking about the cosmic fire, the Logos, which everything comes from. It's the unifier of all opposites. It's also what creation, and him in an eternal cyclical process, it begins and ends in the cosmic fire. It begins and ends in the Logos. Here we get to Empedocles dealing with the Parmenidean and the Heraclitean cosmologies. He's kind of blending them to a degree. And what does he add? Well, he adds this concept of sin. He uses the idea of sin. Now, Heraclitus was talking about judgment of the cosmic fire, which clearly, what are you judging? But Empedocles starts talking about sin. Now, again, he also adopted the transmigration of souls. But why did he adopt the transmigration of souls? He was trying to account for sin. Okay, so he's thinking of sin. Again, this is in the Greek context. So we're divorced from Old Testament scripture. We're divorced from the familiarities of the Hebrews, right, for you guys. But he comes up with this concept of sin. What's the consequences of sin? Well, the transmigration of souls, the lowering of one's own being into an animal or a plant or whatever. You can see that for these people, oh, that's logical. Sin exists. The cosmic fire, the Logos, the universe is changing, the unifier of opposites. He's judging us at the end of time that we must transmigrate, right, based on our sins. Ortho Christo says, what book is this? It is From Logos to Trinity, the evolution of religious beliefs from Pythagoras to Tertullian, for those of you who are interested. So, continuing on. The synthesis offered by Empedocles was, however, original, unique, and coherent, and it confirmed the principle of modern science. For Empedocles in Greek thought, the universe was eternal, and nothing could be created out of nothing. Total annihilation is equally unthinkable. Okay, so this was a big one, right? That for the Greek thought, the universe was eternal. Nothing could be created out of nothing. Okay, and this was really a big hiccup, I would say, for the Greek mind. Again, because they're doing natural theology, they're doing natural philosophy, they're observing nature and coming up, and they were getting close. That's what's so amazing, guys. Like, I love this. They're doing natural theology, and they're coming up with the logos. They're developing ideas that we then divinize as Jesus Christ. But it was like by them worshiping nature, they're getting, even though errant, heretical in behavior, they're moving towards the logos because that's what they're witnessing, right? They're watching natural phenomenon, and they're coming up with further extrapolations on what the logos is. Meanwhile, flip over to the Hebrews, they're all oriented in revelation, right? They're not doing natural philosophy at all. And so again, it's so beautiful how God brings these two sort of epistemological processes, revelatory knowledge versus philosophical inductive knowledge, right? Brings them together in Christianity. Again, Christ is the bringer of the myth and reality, right? If you want to use the Jordan Peterson thing. So anyways, looked like Jimmy tried to find the book online, and it was like $100. I found a copy. I bought this in 2018. I found a copy of this book in a library. I started reading through it, and I thought, wow, this is an insightful book. He said a few things I might disagree with, depending. I don't know what this guy's religion is, or if he is one, if he is Christian, but he does a great job, again, bringing it through the intellectual history. And I got mine for, I think it was like $50 or something. So sorry that it seems like it's a more expensive book now. It's up around $100. But if you can find a cheaper copy, I recommend it. I really enjoy this book. And I'll be doing more streams out of this book as well. So anyways, for Parmenides, the universe was eternal, immovable, and unchangeable, but not limitless. If it were limitless, then it could come into being. It could come into being from and disappear into the infinite. For Empedocles, the universe was immense and not limitless either, but it was in constant flux. So this is important, guys, because now he's saying that the universe itself has limits. In our cosmology as Christians, we believe in a creator and creation. Creation then, by definition, can't be limitless. It's created. The only thing that is ultimately limitless, ultimately eternal, ultimately infinite is God, not creation. And so again, even though he has a reincarnational transmigration of souls worldview, he has an eternal universe. What does he do that is moving it closer towards our worldview? He says, well, the universe has to be limitless. I mean, it has to have limits. It can't be limitless. It can't be limitless. It has to have limits. And that, again, I think that's an important idea moving into a closer worldview as ours. I'm going to skip actually this entire, well, here. Yeah, I'm going to skip that entire paragraph. And we're going to move over to this paragraph over here. So skipping and moving forward, it reads, the supreme stage in the cyclic evolution of the universe is the occurrence of the spheros. So that's Sphiros. So it's spheros, or sphere, which is periodically destroyed and reformed. The spheros is the final stage in one cosmic cycle, and the initial stage in the following one. Empedocles conceived the metaphor of the spheros based on the concepts of Xenophanes and Parmenides. For Xenophanes, if we believe in the testimonies of later doxographers, was to use the metaphor of the sphere in order to describe the perfection of the divinity without all the usual trappings of the anthropomorphic features, a divinity totally transcendent and detached from the human world. Thus, this spheros would represent the form of the divine, a sphere neither finite nor infinite. All mind, having nothing in common with humans and existing outside the universe, was simultaneous with it. So I love that because I've talked to people before about worldviews that are totally emphatic about monism and the monad, of which, again, these people are also interested in that they will describe God as a circle or a dot within a circle. That leads more toward an emanationist cosmology. And we get that right here with Empedocles. Xenophanes and Parmenides. For Parmenides, the universe as a whole was immutable, unchangeable, and spherical. As a being, it was perfect and resembling, in a way, the bulk of the well-rounded sphere, equally balanced in all ways from the center. So again, basically, the universe itself comes to take, again, well, in a way that I said it earlier, the universe is like the body of the logos for these people in a way. Again, we would never say that as Christians. For Empedocles, the spheros becomes a special stage in the cosmic cycle when all objects, everything that exists, celestial bodies, men, beasts, gods, elements, are dissolved in an amalgam, a state of perfection. It is round, enormous, and not limitless, and can be described only negatively. The metaphor of the spheros was chosen because it easily represented something perfect. It is not unlike a representation of the giant black hole, a cosmic stage before the Big Bang and a result of the big crunch of modern astrophysics. I love that he included this, and I'll explain to you guys why. He talked earlier about the worldview being very similar to modern cosmology regarding the Big Bang and the Big Crunch. Well, this concept of the spheros, this point in between the cycles, that one cycle ends in the spheros, and then out of the same spheros, the new cycle begins. He said, he highlights that, that sounds a lot like modern cosmology and their ideas of the black hole. And it does. It does, right? And so that's what's so interesting about this intellectual history stuff is once you get your belt around Orthodox theology, and then you start diving into intellectual history, you can see the errors that continue to arise in history over and over and over again. And which then also gives you a different sense of faith in regards to the Orthodox framework, in regards to Orthodox theology, because it's so, it's so fulfilling in many different ways. So if your appetite is intellectual, like mine happened to be, Orthodoxy fulfills it. If your appetite is aesthetics and beauty, Orthodoxy fulfills it. If it's about humility, if it's about asceticism, Orthodoxy fulfills it. It meets you wherever you're at. Anyways, my point with all that was when you understand more of Orthodox theology and then you are familiar with intellectual history, you can see modern concepts like string theory or materialism in regards to the atomist worldview, or the Big Bang in regards to these ideas aren't new, right? They're present back with the Greeks. And so once you're able to see that, I think it's really, really helpful. Anyways, moving forward. The mind of mortal humans is not able to grasp this awesome universe. One only Empedocles is able to understand. The idea of the forces that operate the universe, strife or hatred, and amity or love, also designated allegorically as Aphrodite, harmony, and Kypris, was developed by Empedocles under the influence of Heraclitus and his dialectical contradictions operating simultaneously under the law of the universe, the logos that permeates all nature. Though the law is universal, each human has his own mind. These forces are not personal causes directing the world, but are subject to the law of the cosmic cycle. So I didn't find, so we're going to skip about 5 paragraphs here, okay, and move on. The next section I want to, again, we're still in the same section, actually, the next paragraph. The world's equilibrium when amities, again, so he has this worldview of strife and hatred, amity and love. This is what's constantly bringing things together and taking things apart. You can talk about matter, you can talk about atoms, you can talk about plants, anything. He had this worldview that love and amity brings things together, strife and hatred separates things and brings them apart. The world's equilibrium when amity's action predominates is disturbed next by slowly gaining strife. And now it seems that Empedocles shifts his point of emphasis to the aspects of moral human actions and describes the current state of affairs in our imperfect world with all its destruction of animal species, hatred among men and gods, and wars. Gods now demand bloody sacrifices, which to Empedocles, who became a Pythagorean, were equivalent to the slaughter of human beings. Empedocles, like Heraclitus and Pythagoras, expresses his passionate appeals to his compatriots to stop these nonsensical animal sacrifices. They atone for bloodshed, and this is a quote from Empedocles, they atone for bloodshedding by smearing themselves with blood, as if to cleanse oneself from mud, and you had to wallow in the mud. So I love that, right? So the people who are developing this concept of logos, we've met Pythagoras, we've met Empedocles, and we've met Heraclitus. All three of which were outspoken against the animal sacrifices and human sacrifices occurring in the Greek tradition under the auspices of religion or sacrifices to the gods, right? So I thought that was very fascinating that the people who were interested in this cosmic harmony, more so talking about logos, they were also very outspoken against the sacrifices to the pagan gods. Empedocles probably got interested in the Pythagorean theories because of his attraction to the idea of the transmigration of souls and survival of consciousness. He was probably affected by many trends current at the time, including influences from the East in the form of a new Buddhist religion. Pythagoras himself claimed to pass through 4 transmigrations. Empedocles still did not believe in the transcendentality. Let me try this one more time. The transcendentality. My gosh. Woo! I could not talk there. The transcendentality of the gods as they were historical figures who became immortal. On nature, Empedocles believed that the highest human attainment was to be merged in the spheros as its integral part without any personal memory. So here again, I think it's like the inversion of our ideas. They still have this yearning to be unified with their concept of the divine. But because the Greek mind is so interested in these abstractness, that to be synergized with the divine means the annihilation of your personal memory and your personal being. It's exactly what we talk about as the inverse, right? But at the same time, it's like the yearning for theosis. It's like the pagan mind knew. The Reese report says transcendental. No, it's transcendentality, bub. Come on, bub. Come on. Keep up with us. Come on, Reese report. So it's so interesting that the Greek mind was interested in the divinization of the individual, really a concept of theosis. Yet to do it was always the eradication of the person. Right? So totally the inverse of our theology, right? Our theology begins with personhood. I'm a person because I'm made in the image of God. God is 3 persons, 1 essence. The way in which I encounter God, relate to God, communicate to God is from a person-to-person basis. Then we can get into abstractness. The Greek mind so focused on the abstract wants yourself to become abstract, right? That you literally lose your personhood in the process of being divinized. Okay, so on nature, Empedocles believed that the highest human attainment was to be merged in the spheros as an integral part without personal memory. Now, in purifications, when the spheros became a transcendent being, The highest attainment for man became deification, but after transmigration in order to expiate sins. This is a quote. In the end, they became seers and composers of hymns and physicians and leaders of men on earth. From these states, they sprout up again as gods, immortal, honored above all. This is talking about the Greek gods, by the way. Empedocles now wants personal immortality for man. Right? This is what I was trying to highlight to you guys here, the difference. He wants immortality for man and recognizes it in the survival of consciousness after dissolution of the elements in the body. It is not clear, however, whether this means survival only through one cosmic cycle or through many. Another change was his deep preoccupation with sin. This is what I was trying to highlight with you guys. It came probably from the Orphic occult sects, which were quite popular at the time in Greece. The idea of sin was not prominent in Greek philosophy. It was well developed in the Hindu and Egyptian cultures and in mystic religions such as Orphism. His main concern was the crime committed by killing sacrificial animals and thereby the people who were incarnated in them. Empedocles considered himself among the sinners. Okay, so that concludes our section on Empedocles. Now we're going to be diving into Diogenes of Apollonia and Anaximenes. So guys, if you care, if you have not, please smash that like. I want to thank Jimmy for sharing the Streamlabs link. If you guys want to Super Chat, feel free to use the Streamlabs link preferably, or you can use YouTube if you prefer YouTube. That's fine too. Also, the second half of this stream is available right now. Already been posted, already been filmed, already been edited over at the website. Go to davidpatrickcarey.com/register, become a member, and you can watch the second half of this stream. So there is the link. Okay, now to our next section, looking at Diogenes of Apollonia and Anaximenes. Another concept of pervading intellect was developed by Diogenes of Apollonia, circa 430 BC, who is considered the last of the pre-Socratic natural philosophers. He explained the world by reference to infinite and eternal air. He, like Anaximenes, made air the primary substance of the universe and assigned to it intelligence and identified it with God. He claimed that humans and other animals, inasmuch as they breathe, live by air, which was the vivifying agent of the soul. The human soul was thus air and a portion of God. This is really important, guys. Now we're getting into Pneuma. We're getting into the spirit, right? And new ideas, new philosophical concepts related to this ethereal air, right? That somehow air, breath becomes, people are already putting out these ideas, but breath is divinized. Breath is the source of our own life. Breath is what animates us, right? Now air and the ether starts taking on a new importance. This is, so follow. And so you can see I have all this underlined here. And on the side, I wrote Greek origin of the concept of pneuma, meaning the spirit. So here we go. This is really interesting stuff. So continuing on, we're talking about Anaximenes, okay? And Diogenes of Apollonia and Anaximenes are talking about air in a new divinized way. That air, breath, somehow it's sacred. Somehow it's life-giving, okay? So follow. Medical writers of the epoch regarded breath as the agent giving life and intelligence, inspired by respiration and transmitted by the arteries. They had an intuitive sense of oxygen, which is a life-sustaining component of the air. Obviously, the link between breath, life, and divinity was a common observation. And the conclusion drawn from it led to the formulation of vitalistic assertions about animating breath, pneuma, spirit, or soul. This also was the understanding of the human soul in the early Christian writings, where the Greek concepts of the pneuma under the influence of the Essenes, replaced the Hebrew concepts of the soul, life, nephesh. Josephus wrote that the Essenes adopted the Greek Platonic view of the immortality of souls derived from the, quote, most subtle air, unquote, and united to their bodies as in prisons. This vitalistic conclusion still survives in religious systems, though in a somewhat more refined version. Nevertheless, the basis of our current religious concept of the soul is the observation and explanation given in antiquity. Thus, air in the pre-Socratic metaphysics is for human beings both soul, psyche, and intellect, nous. And if this departs, they die. Okay, so without the spirit, you're dead, and it's related to the soul and to the mind. Interesting. So pneuma is now related to psyche and nous. Psyche is just the Greek word for soul. The air pervades all things, possesses intelligence, governs all things, and is responsible in humans for their sensations and mental activity. It is breathed in and circulates throughout the blood vessels. The human soul is air, and thus a portion of God. The Greek terms were translated directly into the Latin, and the commonly used term spirit or spiritus designates exactly the same thing. The action of breathing, a single breath, the air breathed into and expelled from the lungs, breath as the concomitant of life or consciousness, life, consciousness, the non-corporeal part of a person, the vital principle animating the world or a person. This is all related to pneuma. This is all related to the concept of the spirit. So very, very interesting stuff that I think we could even jump on as Christians. At least we can see that how we further developed ideas related to this stuff. So very, very interesting stuff. Okay. So the next section is on Plato and his dualism. So now we're going to look into Plato and his dualism. So Plato, 427 to 347 BC, was a creator of a strict dichotomal order of reality divided into being and becoming. The order of being, defined as, quote, that which always is and never becomes, unquote, was the real world consisting of the incorporeal forms or ideas, which are the objects of rational understanding and comprehended only by intelligence, and of the operations of logic and mathematics. The forms were also defined in Pythagorean terms as the limit. They serve as an intelligible and unchanging model for the formation of the universe perceived by the senses. The order of becoming, defined as, quote, that which is always becoming but never is, unquote, was the world of objects that are perceived by irrational senses and which are coming to be and are ceasing to be, and was governed by some cause. For Plato, empirical knowledge was uncertain and unsatisfactory, and as such was proof of a rational and purposeful design of nature. The sensible world is a product of an intelligent action of its maker, described variously as God, Father, Maker, Craftsman, One, or Mind, and is directed by intelligence for a good purpose, but is formed from pre-existing material. We're going to skip one paragraph and move on. And the next one is Plato's concept of God and the good. So now we're going to get into this God and the good. Okay, let me clear up some stuff. No, pneuma equals spirit. So let me type this in the chat so we can clear things up. Pneuma equals spirit. Okay, so Suke equals soul, nous equals mind. Oh, dang it. Mind. There we go. Okay, so continuing on, Plato, this is on God, Plato's God and his concept of the good, or at least the concept of God and Plato's good. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Plato next constructs a spherical world, highly organized, with a central earth and an outer sphere carrying the fixed stars. The planets are carried around on rings constructed within the outer sphere. Plato's world is hierarchical and was designed for a purpose and good. The motive of the creator for creation of such a world was to make things as good as possible because he is good and wished all things to be like himself. So in the Platonic system, goodness is coupled with purpose. Thus God, wishing that all things should be good, reduced the visible universe to order from disorder, as he judged that order was in every way better. Okay, so what I loved about that is, what does God say according to Genesis after he creates it? And God said, it was good. It was good. And I love this idea taken from Platonism, that so in the Platonic system, goodness is coupled with purpose. Thus, God, wishing that all things should be good, reduced the visible universe to order from disorder. Right? What happens in Genesis? God orders chaos. He puts order into the universe. That's what is good. Man is order, right? Man falls into chaos, disorder. That is not good. So I just love the way this describes Plato's idea of the good, and how, again, we can understand God creating creation. Okay. Plato, as did the many pre-Socratics and Stoics, visualized the world as a living creature with intelligence and therefore a soul. When fashioning intelligence, the maker implanted reason, nous, into the soul, suke, and the soul in the body, soma. So the world came to be through God's providence and is a living being. Now, we wouldn't say that, right? So in the Platonic worldview and the Greek worldview, they're saying the universe is alive. It is a being. It is intelligent. We would not, panpsychism, I think, is a modern cosmological theory that moves in that direction. It's very popular right now. Even within the academy, people promote panpsychism. Anyways, I digress. I just always start rambling. The model for the world is, quote, the eternal living creature, unquote, which is the complex system of forms whose likeness we can find in the world of becoming. The world formed from disordered primordial matter is a unique universe of God's only creation. It is a single complete whole consisting of parts and is subject neither to age nor to disease. Its figure is the one that contains within itself all possible figures. That is the sphere, the extremes in all directions. The world is endowed with a uniform circular motion on the same spot. The universe, Plato treated as a created and blessed God. Again, we wouldn't talk about the universe that way. The soul of the world was put in the center and diffused through the whole. It was made by mixing the three logical categories: existence, difference, and sameness. The world thus is formed and is not eternal, though formed from eternal, pre-existent, and unorganized matter. Each planet is a living creature, a compound of soul and body, and thus a created God. Time is measured and directed by the movement of sun, moon, and planets. This basic scheme of the world has a Pythagorean origin. In his metaphysics, Plato differentiated several divine beings: the creator God, demiurge, is a transcendental being and not an object of worship. And in the Philebus, Plato equates this God with mind. He is not equated with the supreme God of the Greek pantheon, Zeus, and he is not the personal, omnipotent God of the Jews or Christians, Yahweh. And he is not even reason, Logos, immanent in the world of the Stoic philosophers. This Platonic creator God is also a creator of traditional Greek gods subordinate to him, but Plato prefers not to talk about them, referring us to the traditional sources. So then it has a quote here from Plato. It is beyond our powers to know or to tell about the birth of other gods. We cannot distrust the children of the gods, even if they come no probable or necessary proof of what they say. We must conform to custom and believe their account of their own family history. Let us therefore follow them in our account of the birth of these gods. So, the immortal parts of the human souls were created directly by Demiurge, father of the universe. But the formation of human bodies from the four elements he left to the created gods. For if they were created by him, quote, they would be equal to God, unquote. So we see a category error there that somehow if God creates something, it's equal to God. Well, shoot, if I create a painting, that painting isn't equal to me. That doesn't seem logical in my opinion. But I mean, you can see why somebody would argue that. But to me, that's a logical category error. Just because you create something doesn't mean that the essence of that thing is transmitted or carried on into the thing created. That doesn't make any sense. Anyways, thus, in order to have mortal creatures, the other gods must create them just as the demiurge did, by weaving mortal and immortal together by creating a living creature. The ingredients for the human soul in the Platonic worldview are the same as the world soul, but, quote, only not quite so pure, unquote. And demiurge allotted each soul to a star. They are told at their creation that any failure in living a good life in their first incarnation as man will lead to reincarnation as women first, and then into some animal or lower animals suitable to the particular kind of wrongdoing, and would have no respite until they bring under rational control of their irrational feelings. So we're gonna skip the rest of that paragraph here. The world soul is an intelligence that permeates the world and is needed in the Platonic universe as a continuous force causing the regular motion of the heavenly bodies. In another place, Plato stated that the universe was given intelligence by the Creator. Thus, we may find here a doctrine of two minds, one as permeating the universe and the other as imparted from the transcendent deity. In Plato's metaphysics, the superior part of the human soul has a divine nature, and in this way humans partake of, quote, the divine mind. Also, the divine mind was the agent that organized the visible world. In Plato's dynamics, bodies in motion must either have that motion imparted by another body or have within themselves a self-creating source of motion, like living organisms that are endowed with a psyche, a soul. Thus, in this naive explanation, soul was regarded as the only self-originating source of motion. Therefore, the analogous world soul was responsible for keeping the heavenly bodies in motion. It is characteristic that from the physical motion of heavenly bodies, there was a regular and irregular, equivalent in a logical category, same and different. Plato deduced two types of logical judgments in human rational thought. So what did we just read here in Plato? Plato has a logos that is not immanent, right? Pythagoras had an immanent logos. Heraclitus' logos was a little bit more immanent. Plato had a strict dualism, a dialectic between the forms and sort of being, the actual world that is. And all that is good, all that is perfect, is up in the realm of the forms. That's where the logos resides. And the logos is tied to numbers. It again takes on many of the Heraclitean attributes of order, uniting opposites, this type of thing. Also logos, speaking truth, reason, all this stuff. So Plato definitely develops the logos, but it's not immanent and it has no personhood. It's extremely abstract and it's really up only in the realm of the forms and you aren't privy of it. It's basically, that we are too gross as living creatures. And so Plato's logos isn't accessible. You can't communicate with that logos. You can't pray to that logos. You can't have a relationship with it. The only way you can come to know things are through his a priori to deductive process of knowledge, right? So Plato, and I've talked about this before, Plato is interested in a priori. That's why he begins his whole philosophies up in the forms. He a priori presupposes the realm of the forms, then he deduces what reality is from that a priori presupposition. That's how Platonic philosophy works. And also, we have to a priori presuppose God, right? So we do a similar approach to our worldview. The difference would have been an Aristotelian approach was an inductive to deductive. So Aristotle, student of Plato, Aristotle went into a different direction. He began his philosophy by induction. Again, what's around me? What can I witness? What can I measure? What can I touch? Induction. And then he deduced from there. He's not starting with these vast a priori principles that Plato did. And so as well, just the way that we do apologetics, Father Deacon Dr. Ananias, J. Dyer, push more towards the transcendental argument for God. That would be much more aligned with that Platonic formation of knowledge as opposed to the Aristotelian formation, which is inductive, right? It's about science, about empirical investigation. It's about natural observation, stuff like that. Plato's not doing that. And so because Plato is a priori to deductive, the logos is way up here. It's so abstract. So that's why that section is titled Plato and His Dualism, that he has a much more of a dualistic framework than some of the previous thinkers. So that concluded our section on Plato. Now we're going to get into Xenocrates, or Xenocrates, I've heard him pronounced as well. I'm not sure exactly how the correct pronunciation. I've heard people call him Xenocrates, and I've heard people call him Xenocrates, or Xenocrates. So I don't know. Somebody will correct me and tell me how poorly I pronounced it, but I understand. So Xenocrates, I'll just bastardize the hell out of his name and just Americanize it. Xenocrates of Chalcedon was the second successor of Plato in his academy after Speusippus. We have only fragments of their writings and testimonies left by others about their doctrines. They both elaborated further on the existence of cosmic principles in Plato's Philebus, already listed by Pythagoras. Eventually, such speculations led to the abandonment of the theories of ideas as separate entities and to postulating the ideas as the thoughts of the divine intellect. As Pythagoras ascribed a great role to numbers and Plato described the cosmos as an expression of geometrical and mathematical regularities, it seems that Xenocrates substituted numbers for the ideas, just fusing the ideal and the mathematical entities. Xenocrates, however, claimed that there are no separate numbers for sensible things. The Xenocratic philosophy constitutes an important transition to Middle Platonism, which, again, if you guys are familiar with Philo of Alexandria, he was a Middle Platonist. He derived everything that exists from the supreme monad, identified with the intellect, and from the non-one, which he identified with matter or the indefinite dyad because of its multiplicity. He tried to preserve the Platonic concept of ideas as the models of things. So he treated them as numbers, because just as numbers were defining things, so ideas were defining matter. They were invisible, comprehensible by the intellect, and incorporeal principles of the sensible reality imparted from the supreme monad. As to the material in the sensible world, it was made of 4 simple and primary elements. These were organized into composed entities, analogically to the construction of the geometrical figures that were produced from the primary figures. Moreover, all reality was divided into 3 geometrical patterns according to 3 types of triangles. This was interesting. The equilateral triangle represented unity. So a perfectly equal triangle represents unity. Thus, the soul of the supreme divinity. The isosceles represented, 2 same sides, 1 shorter side, an isosceles triangle, represented equality and disequality, unity and variety. Thus, the soul of demonic beings, having human passions and divine faculties. The scaling with all unequal sides represented the descending souls mixed with the material elements, thus human beings. Xenocrates claimed that the universe was born out of disorder and brought into order by the divinity. But he defended Plato, claiming that when Plato said that the world was generated, he did not mean to say that the universe was generated in time, but only intended to explain better that the cosmos derived from pre-existent matter and from the form just analogical to the process of mathematical reasoning. And the cosmos had an indestructible nature, which meant that it pre-existed in existence. That it persisted in existence by the will of the divinity that governed it. Thus, he could clearly state the universe is eternal and unregulated. What I gathered when I was reading this section for Xenocrates, what I thought is important is that he said that the existence of the universe is due to the will of the divinity. I hadn't heard that one yet in many of these Greek philosophers. And so when we talk about, from a Christian context, the creator and the creation is clearly a contingent, and it's contingent upon God wanting it to exist. That's our worldview. And so it's very interesting to see this gentleman be the one to kind of put this forward in the Greek context that, well, again, he's arguing for an eternal universe. So he's saying, well, it's eternal because it's governed by the will of the eternal God. But I saw that as, a sort of precursor for something that we'd be more interested in. So skipping to the next paragraph, in his theology, Xenocrates differentiated 2 cosmic principles as divinities, the monad and the dyad. One was the masculine divinity, and as such had a role of the Father and ruled in heaven, the monad. He proclaimed it to be the one and the intellect. This was the supreme deity, the first God, immovable and unchanging, called Zeus. The other was the feminine deity, who had a role of the mother of gods and ruled over the gods beneath the heaven. She was the soul of the universe. Clement of Alexandria ascribed to Xenocrates the distinction between Zeus, the supreme God, the Father, and the other inferior God, the Son. So what I wanted to highlight there is that, again, the idea of the mother God being the world soul, being the cosmic soul, we find this over and over and over again in pagan worldviews, whether it be Gaia, whether it be Mother Nature, whether it be the mother God of Xenocrates, whatever it is, we find this same thing, that the feminine is always tied to matter. And the masculine is always tied to something that's transcendent, right? So what does he talk about? Well, the mother we can see all around us. It's nature. It's matter. But for him, the Father is transcendent. He's in heaven. He's unseeable. He's non-visible. So I think it's really interesting to notice how these 2 patterns play themselves out over and over and over. It goes on to talk about here. There's only one thing that I found interesting in the rest of the reading regarding to Xenocrates was that Others, including Tertullian, claim that Xenocrates differentiated only two groups of gods, the astral Olympians and the Titans derived from Earth. Thus, the astral bodies would be the instruments of the monad, and the sublunar Titans and demons linked to the invisible corporeal elements would represent the manifestations of the dyad. Very interesting stuff there, I thought. But anyways, guys, that concludes today's stream. I have the second half. If you want to see all this highlighting, right? This is all on the Stoics. If you want to get, and that video is well over an hour, guys. So if you want to get the rest of this stream, please go over to the website davidpatrickcarey.com and become a website member, please. Again, if everybody could smash that like, I would greatly appreciate that. If you guys just jumped in, please smash that like. I would greatly appreciate it. Again, this, if you want to watch the rest of today's stream, please go over to the website and become a website member. I've already have the video up. It's called The Stoics and Their Logos. It's about, I think it's an hour and 7 minutes, and it is the continuation of today's stream. So anyways, guys, if you could, I'll check the super chats now. So it looks like, why are people unliking the stream? So if you guys could please smash the like, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's see here if anybody threw in some super chats. So it looks like we have one super chat from Andrew Pro, who donated $10. And Andrew Pro said, "You are the man, Patrick. Just watch your Samson stream. I love hearing your accurate analogies to our contemporary American culture. Love the young blood in you and your following." 21 here. "Pray for a pious Orthodox woman, boys. God bless." Well, Andrew Pro, thank you so much, brother. I greatly appreciate that. And I'm glad that you liked the Samson stream. I just do my best. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for the $10 of your support. Again, Andrew Pro, he said, "You are the man, Patrick. Just watch your Samson stream. I love hearing your accurate analogies to our contemporary American culture. Love the young blood in you and your following." 21 here. "Pray for a pious Orthodox woman, bros. God bless." Anyways, thank you. So Jimmy said, "Must be a bug on your end." Oh, okay. But anyways, guys, it looks like nobody has any questions or anything that wanted to say. Looks like you guys were having a lot of fun in the chat here. Marco Ramos said, "Great stream. I have to run to Vespers." Well, Marco, thank you very much, brother, and God bless you. Hope you enjoy Vespers. Marco says, "We thank you, our Creator, that you have granted us your grace to attend to this instruction. Bless our parents and teachers who are leading us to knowledge of good." Amen to that. "And grant us energy and strength to persevere in our studies." Amen. Amen to that, Marco. Truly appreciate that, brother. And so everybody, Crispy Johnson said, "Thanks, great stream." So I must have a bug on my end or something. It went from 52 likes down to 44, but oh well. Anyways, guys, again, if you would like to see the second half of this stream, go to the website davidpatrickcarey.com/register. I will share that link right now in the live chat, and become a website member. It is already posted along with multiple exclusive content videos, 2 video libraries. One of the things that I think I might do here, this was a thought I had recently, is that creating a sort of book club. I don't know how this is going to work, and I need to think about it a little bit more, but I thought it'd be cool if, say maybe we do it once a month or something, where I find something that we can read and people purchase to belong to the group. You go to the website, you purchase, okay, pretend there was a meeting on April 14th. There isn't one. So on April 14th, you go to the website, or before the April 14th, whenever the item is posted, you go to the website, you purchase, okay, the meeting, the book club reading for April 14th. Then you get the PDF file. Now you can download the PDF file. So the goal would be multiple people get the PDF file. We all read something. Say it's on, Tertullian. Say it's on the Apologies of Justin Martyr. Everybody gets the document. Everybody reads it. And then on that day, it's, maybe it's like a few bucks or something, that to get inside the Zoom meeting, so say 10, 20 people, we all read this article. Now we can meet and basically have a roundtable discussion for 2 hours or so, talking about our readings. People, okay, I saw this, I saw that. We can go back and forth and basically just have a really cordial, insightful discussion with one another. I thought that would be a fun thing to do. That would be a new dimension to the community. That'd be a new something to offer. And that would be fun. I'm always reading stuff. It would be fun that we just pick out something that we all read it together. I thought that'd be an idea. Again, if that's something you guys would be interested in, let me know. Also, if you guys have good ideas for content, I'm always coming up with content. I can always come up with a new idea for content. But if you guys have something in particular, always feel free to reach out and suggest something. Sometimes you guys come up with really insightful and interesting ideas where you say something and it's like, yep, that's it. I'm going to take that and I'm going to go stream on that. So, I have a few ideas on what I wanted to do next, which will probably be Friday, it'll probably be Saturday. Will be the next time I stream. I had a few ideas, but if you guys have anything in particular you would be interested in, feel free to put that out. And if you guys would be interested in doing like a book club where we can all read something ahead of time, and then we can all get into a big group meeting together, a Zoom meeting, let me know if that'd be something you'd be interested in. If it is, I may move forward with that and go ahead and set up an event, come up with some reading material, and then put that up on the website so people can go purchase that. And so maybe in like a week or two, we can have a private Zoom meeting going over whatever it is that we read. So if that's something you'd be interested, let me know in the comment section. That is basically it. That all I have. So guys, thank you so much for the love and support. I hope you enjoyed today's stream and learned a little something regarding Greek culture and Greek philosophy. Again, enjoy all the new icons. I'm so excited that they're all in. We finally have a beautiful icon corner, right? That I still have the two psychedelic, it's not necessarily psychedelic. It is from the Imaginary Foundation, but I kept getting messages from people saying, dude, you got to take off the psychedelic artwork. You got to take, all right. So it's gone now. So we got the artworks over on the opposite walls now, and I'm excited. I love these icons. I love this one in particular, the Psalm 103 one. I love that one. And when I turn this light on, it really pops all the colors out of that icon. I love it. Anyways, guys, I'm rambling again. If you guys have any ideas for streams, any ideas moving